There's $15 trillion worth of net new economic activity that AI has got to create. Even if that economic activity will be done with 50% extra efficiency, that's a massive amount of employment, that's a massive amount of revenue, that's a massive amount of new business models coming into the table. And I actually think the next 10 years are going to be very, very different. If I go back and introduce saying I've been in business for 20 years, great, I have the context of business. But because you don't have that baggage, you might be able to think very differently from what I'm thinking with that 20-year baggage. We've got to push the boundaries far more than what our corporates are challenging us for. But when we collaborate with MU, you want to really push the boundaries of what the future of that segment will be 7, 8, 9 years out.
What do you think about what I just said in terms of us changing levels of abstraction?
So, you know what? I just give a slightly corporate-ish PwC spin to what Pratham just said. When we are out in the market talking to CEOs in India, outside India, one of the biggest concerns that any and every CEO has today is, other than meeting my quarter or the year or dealing with productivity and better ways of doing things, is that my model of doing business, my core business model, my core revenue streams is not going to sustain, is not going to last. More than 50% CEOs in the sector that I represent, tech, media, telecom, have come back and said that my business model will not last for more than a decade. And that's a very significant concern for a CEO because it takes time to transform, it takes time to evolve to new models. And on top of this, there is a whole bunch of technology and drift and data and a whole bunch of opportunities coming to them. But how much should you invest? How can you extract the most value? What could the new model look like? What could the new revenue streams be? Is a very foggy future. And that's really what the expectation in the market is for a firm like PwC to be able to solve. Now, marry that with what Pratham just said. We need freewheeling thinking because what we're trying to solve for is not putting in a best practice that a company has already put to the table. We're trying to solve for something that does not exist. You're trying to solve for something that's a foggy future. PwC's report goes back and says 2030, there's $15 trillion worth of net new economic activity that AI has got to create. $15 trillion. Even if that economic activity will be done with 50% extra efficiency, that's a massive amount of employment, that's a massive amount of revenue, that's a massive amount of new business models coming into the table. How do we take a lion's share of that is a question that every CEO has to ask, is a question that every student has to ask. How am I going to be relevant in that $15 trillion? Am I a 1 trillion player or am I going to take the large lead? So it's a massive opportunity. And I actually think the next 10 years are going to be very, very different from, if I go back and introduce saying I've been in business for 20 years, great, I have the context of business. But because you don't have that baggage, you might be able to think very differently from what I'm thinking with that 20-year baggage. And that's what this partnership is all about.
Absolutely. I want to ask a slightly controversial question. Okay. I read this article somewhere that in the next 5 years, we'll have our first single employee unicorn. We'll have our first company which will have a single employee which will become $1 billion in valuation.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible?
So even that single employee will get questioned. So we've already had this Chinese company that came up where the CEO landed up being a generative AI CEO, let's CEO. So theoretically, as you kind of take this technology forward, as you start bringing in, quantum computing to the table, the ability to simulate scenarios and take decisions on the back of data is going to be absolutely at a click of a button. And I know the cost of infrastructure and all of that is heavy, but billions of dollars are being put in right now to make the infrastructure sort of absolutely available. That's nearly happening, and the world of AI agents is a reality, and AGI is around the corner. Something like that's absolutely possible. Now, again, I don't want to get into the debate of, oh my God, the world's going to die. What will happen to people? What will happen to workforce? I mean, for somebody like me, that's a drift that we have to challenge the boundaries of thinking towards, that it's possible. And it's going to be a journey, and we've got to exploit that journey more and more and more for the good of the society, people, environment, companies, everything.
So what does that mean for students here, right? As they start building their companies, how should they be thinking about this? Should they be building for an AI future? Of course, they should be. But then what does that look like?
Yeah. So am I live on this? Because I would have otherwise spoken a few extra things, but let me be balanced on this. If you're a student living in the world of AI, Some of the companies you aspire to work for are the companies that are under intense pressure for transforming their business model, like I'm saying. See, each one of you have this opportunity to go out, put your skin in the game, and create an opportunity for them. Pick up any industry right now, any large player. What will it take for somebody to disrupt, an Instagram and a Facebook and a LinkedIn and a Twitter? What will that business model look like? Bring in a layer of blockchain into that business and create a distributed economy where every single person on that platform gets to earn money and has the safety that data is decentralized, could possibly be a disruptor. So we've got to think of that all the time. It's a muscle that we'll have to build, because it's, we're used to growing up, oh, you can't compete with the big companies, right? But you have to figure out that new challenge, and that's where net new value will get created.
No, but it's become so easy to build an app, to build an AI first company. How does one even differentiate themselves in this sort of a crowded economy? How many agent companies there are now? How many conversational bot companies there are now? How many those chatbot companies? I mean, millions, literally. It's become so easy. So how do we differentiate?
So I think, again, wearing a corporate lens, LLMs are easy, agents are available, and they will create the 60%, 70% edge to any company today. Like, the first round of first 18 months of corporate conversations, oh, our data is not ready. Can we even start? Absolutely, you can start and create a 60, 70% edge by not even having your data in order. But like you said, that's brass tacks for everybody now in the market. If all you have to use is a pure vanilla chat GPT to get you an answer, that answer is going to be same for you, for your competitor, for, a third person in the ecosystem. But if you start building that muscle of leveraging AI and integrating AI into your core functions and getting your foundational data in place, that's really and truly where competitive advantage gets created. Good news or bad news, there's only 4% corporates in India. This is the Gartner study. 4% corporates in India where their data is AI ready. So if only 4% companies have that data piece sorted, imagine how much money, how many dollars will get spent to get that data layer sorted and put in place. And on top of that, there is this piece of synthetic data that's beginning to come to. Because PwC may have a 150-year set of data, and that'll give me great insights. But my experience can help me simulate scenarios that can be worth another 1,000 years worth of capability that I can put together. Who's building that muscle? How many companies, when you go around, have large strategic teams that are solving and leading data from the front? So that's going to be a massive opportunity out there for
What are
some
some of the companies that you're impressed by? I want 2 examples in the large company system and 2 examples in the startup system in India, where you think that this is something to take inspiration from.
So I'm going to duck the large company answer. They all happen to be customers, and we work very closely with practically all the tech companies. But as far as emerging companies are concerned, it's the startup ecosystem that's really, really, really inspiring to me at this point in time. I mean, let's pick up one example of a startup here. We all know short form video is where the future is. There is so much of content out there that's not in video formats. I'm picking up a large media company. I'm sure it's amongst the top 3 in the country, and they don't have deep video capability. They started off as a newspaper company. They've got digital businesses. They do a whole bunch, but their video capabilities are pretty average, and they're now catching up the space because the future is digital. For all the data that they have, for all the news that they have, for all the insights that they have, and news cuts every single sector and genre, if I bring in that startup that is able to convert digital news into a video and video into a short form video at a click of a button with a limited human being in the loop, that's so much of content and eyeballs that you can generate. Now, anybody can create that content, but this company has a 150-year legacy of information, insight, journalism, a spread and reach that's all over. So it's a massive competitive advantage for them to be built. However, problem statement, again, something that we've got to solve for. This startup is a deep tech startup that's solved for the technology layer. They don't understand the world of business. They don't have the application layer. They don't know what it means for PwC, what it means for media, what it means for pharma, what it means for something else. So that deep tech company will take another 6 years to get enough round of funding, enough experiments, feet on street, understanding enterprise sales, and eventually evolving into a bigger model. That's where large companies have to look for freewheeling setups like them, bring the alliances together and shape the future of business. So there's a lot. It's a very humbling statement. Large enterprises have to learn a lot more from young startups and learn to do much better. And that's where the next round of disruption is going to be.
Got it. So basically, what I'm hearing is that there is a deep tech company that has a tech. There is a potential customer that is ready today to buy a product that helps them use AI. Let's say Danik Bhaskar or somebody, right? Now, in the middle, you need a company to bridge the gap.
It's the application layer.
Other some ideas. So one is legal. We spoke about publishing earlier. What is other some ideas where this bridging is required?
Any and every, pick up any sector. I mean, the other day I was at an airport company, and that airport company was talking about how clinical they have to be from an operations standpoint as far as airport is concerned. You want to create more and more better customer experience. You have to make sure more aircrafts land. You have to make sure maintenance is up to scale. You want to make sure that there are newer revenue opportunities in place. And they were talking about how difficult the business is and how clinically they've been doing it. Now, if I were to ask 10 of your students to start thinking about what the future of airports needs to be, with the current technologies that we can envision and see, bring in robotics, bring in IoTs and sensors, bring in generative AI, bring in personalization. I can tell you, we can blow the hell out of an airport company in terms of reimagining what that business needs to be. Why the heck, if shopping is an agenda with which you make money, why should that hyper personalized experience not start when I'm stuck in the traffic 1 hour towards the ride to the airport? If figuring out your baggage and the nuance of navigating, my baggage is a pain, why can't the baggage through a bot come to me where I am? Why can't it actually pick me up and get me my bag? Why can't sensors make a difference in terms of my overall experience? I'm saying the whole workforce and the business of how you run an airport can get completely reimagined. But when you start thinking of that and the airport company and the capabilities that they've been hiring and building, it's all ops, ops, ops. There's very little tech in their thinking. And if the future of that business is going to be tech, some of that R&D will have to be done, or like Pfizer, be outsourced to somebody who can bring in that thinking for them to be able to take that capability forward. Well, it's a core capability. It's not AI का तड़का लगा देंगे airport पे and life बदल जाएगी. It's a core capability you'll have to bring to the core of an airport operation.
It's not
So
just
how do you
about
transform? How do you
having a
change?
chatbot where you can book a flight. It has to be way more native than that.
Absolutely.
So now I want to, you mentioned that you don't want to talk about what will happen to humans in the future, etc., all of that, but I want to. So I'm going to bring you back to it a little bit. If I was in Phoenix, Arizona, right? It's one of those cities which has really embraced AI. There, I saw at least for every 2 cars, there was at least one Waymo, which is Google's, autonomous car, at least for taxis. I went to a cafe there, which was completely served by robotic arms. There were no humans there, right? I went to exchange money, and there was an AI teller. So there was actually a face of a person. I thought that's a real person, right? But it was just a 3D rendering of a teller. And I exchanged my money like that, right? So with all of these things happening, in the next 5-10 years, more and more and more roles will get AI disrupted. We're already seeing that tech hiring, at least, right? At least at the lowest level, that used to happen in the thousands and millions, that has completely been eroded away, right? So with more and more of this happening, what is the future of employment? Do you think employment as a concept will even exist in the future?
Now, that's a very interesting last spin to this. But just before I get to that last spin, I think my take on this is very, very clear. Whether it was industrial revolution, whether it was e-commerce, whether it was internet, employments, digitization, employments have only increased because net new economic opportunities have increased. There's newer revenues, newer ways of doing things, and therefore there's greater GDP, and greater GDP leads to greater employment. And similarly, like I said, if I'm saying next 5 years is $15 trillion, even if it's done at a significantly better efficiency, that's net new businesses and revenues getting created. So employment will definitely grow. The challenge with generative AI and the anxiety with generative AI that's coming is the speed at which this technology has evolved has not given the breathing space for people to be able to adjust to it. So what worries me is, in the short run, there will be displacement. So if a $100 billion call center industry, which is just trying to kind of get disrupted, I mean, now it's 2 rupee a minute generative AI agent solving a problem 10 times more efficiently than a human being ever could be, that is getting disrupted. So how do you upscale? How do you sort of get them to move up the value chain? How do you make them all entrepreneurs? How do you get them new models? It's definitely going to be disruptive in a short term, clearly. And that's the piece that worries me. Otherwise, the market opportunity of net new things getting done is going to be huge. I mean, I'll give you some other examples, right? If I pick up the laptop industry in the country, devices, for a country of 1.6, 1.5 billion people, what is the TAM of laptops in this country?
Probably 1 billion.
16 million laptops get sold in this country. And that number's not grown for last 5 years.
What are the actual numbers?
Actual numbers not grown. The TAM's pretty much the same. COVID got it up and we are now static at that number. Don't you guys think if I were to, in this world that we're living with, where there is, virtual reality, augmented reality, generative AI, a whole bunch out there, do you think the form factor of that device is not destined to change? Don't you think there is a Steve Jobs iPhone moment that's waiting to kind of disrupt their entire device? If 10 of us were to get into a room and say, what would the future of device be? For it to solve problems that are currently unaddressed, what will that be? I'll give you one tiny example. Today, let's pick up 500 million farmers who are out there in the country. What does a laptop do to them? Not relevant. What can I do for that category to start using it? Today, the ability to get AI on the chip of a machine, coded on the chip, a Snapdragon chip having an LLM on top of it, embedded into the laptop, with a set of use cases that it's trained on, which is around precision farming. Large enterprises who sell to that community as well. So it's to me going to be very different market opportunities that we'll have to be attuned to. But if you are somebody who's grown up in a box, in a military regime that says, boss, these are the 5 things I've learned and I'm destined to do only that one job, sorry, you're going to be out of business. So if you are agile, if you are a fresh thinker, if you are willing to reinvent yourself, if you have an application layer built into your mind and muscle, you're constantly going to be relevant. Last spin on employment. I definitely see the future where ability for young entrepreneurs to compete distinctively with large enterprises is going to be massive, because it's the IP that's going to shape your success in the market. And IP doesn't care about the fact that I have 100 people in my team versus you have only one person. So it's your agility, smartness, alliances, and ecosystem that's going to be a disruptor in the market. And you will be better placed to disrupt a large company than a smaller company. I'll give you a small example again. Each one of you, when you've planned your vacations, you've gone to ChatGPT and said, hey, what the heck should I do? How can I impress my girlfriend? And what will my son like in a vegetarian meal or this meal or that meal? You've all got value for it. Fast. And you did this 15, 18 months back, right? Fast forward. Let's look at travel aggregators today. Let's look at the website of the best hotels around the world. Marriott's and Hilton's, and pick up anybody, Taj. You still don't have that sorted. They are slow. Because to change a large company, to solve for tech debt, to solve for legacy, is a bloody painful job. So it's the startup that's going to come out and do a massive disruption. Of course, the large companies will have the appetite to put money or acquire them at billions of dollars and still be able to stay relevant. But that's the opportunity for each one of you. And therefore, I love the fact when you say at MU, you learn how to do business and do business before you sort of move out, right? That's such a great experience. You've got to learn to fail fast, fail cheap, and keep getting to a sweet spot and be successful.
I have an example. So there is a company in cohort 5, cohort 4, called Seeds.ai. Everyone knows about them, right? So they started doing a conversational bot, but focused only on sales of financial products, because they saw maximum attrition happening in financial sales companies, right? And so it's a 2-member team. I think now they're 3. They raised $200,000.
Wow.
Okay, that's it. And he came to me the other day and he said, we have just gotten an HDFC contract.
My God.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing the other people who run HDFC's back-end sales channels are probably like the largest companies in the world, right? The TCS and the largest BPOs of the world. And here's a 3-person team. And probably at that time, a 2-person team that's gone in and won a contract. It's for a pilot. It's going to compound. But I mean, look at this, right? HDFC is such a large company trusting a 2-person team for their financial product sales. And it happened right here.
I think the single biggest thing, and I tell this to my 13-year-old, 14-year-old son as well, is to have failed a startup is the best blessing you can have. Now, I'm not saying you have to fail a startup. You can fail 3 startups get the maturity of figuring out why it didn't work, keep tweaking it, keep tweaking it, keep tweaking it, even if you have to do an employment later in life. Because that's a skill, that's a muscle you will need as you get to business. Even if it's employment, you will have to, and step into the shoes of a CEO who's saying 10 years later, my business model is going to be different. And he's going to deliver returns to the market today. And the future is foggy. He or she has to take 10 decisions, knowing fully well that 6 of those 10 will not yield results. And if you're an egoistic soul who can't fail and wants everything perfect, you will not take those decisions, which means your company will stale out. So if you need to be that CEO of that company, you have to have that muscle of failing fast, failing cheap, having the humility to listen and say, okay, yeah, I took a wrong decision. Let's get out and improve the next decision. So it's definitely an interesting bit. But you're throwing a lot of questions at me. I've got a question for you as well.
Please.
So in this world where just about everything seems to be different, you've got a massive responsibility at hand. You're shaping the futures of this generation. What is your take in terms of what's the most critical skill you can land to this generation for this foggy future? And how are you kind of sort of bringing that to the fold? Like, I love how you started the military school, and you could relate to that. I just went back, flashback to my school and how militarized we all were. And you've created a great start, but what do you think is the most critical thing for them?
We put a lot of thought into our curriculum when we design it. Swati's here. And I think one of the things we think about a lot is making our students comfortable with ambiguity. Right? The future is fully ambiguous. Like when you were talking about what's going to happen to the farming industry and the laptop integration there, that's super ambiguous. We don't know what it is. And we have to actually start building bottoms up, like put one thing together, not knowing what is going to look like in the end. There's not going to be a syllabus or a instructional panel, right, which is going to tell you do this. So you have to be very comfortable with ambiguity. So when we ask all of our students to work on the venture initiation program, where they have to build a company from scratch, they don't know what it's going to look like 1 month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now. They'll probably pivot 2-3 times. They'll change their teams 2-3 times. They'll change their idea completely 2-3 times. They'll have a failure in the middle. I know for a fact. They're going to come back, build it up again. But through this, they're going to get comfortable with ambiguity. We ask of them in the very first term to build a dropshipping business. Most of them have not done dropshipping before. Most of them come from an employment background. Very few found. We have maybe 10-20% founders, but the rest. Now, when I see in 1 month, them making 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 20 lakh rupees in revenue, I see, by the way, all of you, your DNA change. The kind of language you used 1 month before joining Masters Union and then 1 month after dropshipping, they're two different people completely, right? And so I see their journey as getting comfortable with ambiguity, right? And if I can just instill that confidence कि यार हो जाएगा figure out, अपने को सब planning नहीं चाहिए शुरू से, I feel I would have done my job.
Yeah. In fact, it's just, very close to heart. So, when we set up the CDO group within PwC, the digital team, at PwC, some of the core values that we thought we got to live by was an owner's mindset. And what you, with this example, talking about is when you have to freaking go out and build a business and start making that 15 lakh and 10 lakh and 20 lakhs from scratch without necessarily having the deep capability to be able to do it, is where you begin to start thinking like an owner. Versus an MNC manager can come back and say, oh, it's a large company, somebody else has to think about it and I'll do what I've been asked to do. Thriving in chaos. Again, you spoke about ambiguity. There is a lot of chaos out there for right reasons, wrong reasons, but that's the business reality. That's the corporate reality. How do you thrive in that chaos? How do you break that elephant down into pieces and still be able to sort of keep moving forward? And again, the whole positive mindset, ho jayega, dekhte hain, let's go forward. Infinitely positive attitude, because you will get failures. Are 3 things that sort of were ingrained in every single soul that got hired. In fact, for me, the qualification and degree of a great computer science background was less important than actually having worked in a startup, failed a startup, or bringing in that mindset and attitude to the table. And trust me, that was far more important. In fact, I have Gaurav from my team sitting here. Gaurav, if you want to raise your hands. This bugger was a process consultant, had no shit about technology, and he's the best GenAI guy you can get today in the market. Understands business, understands application, understands technology, just because he brought that skill set and mindset to table. He was comfortable and humble enough to say, I'm happy to learn in a corporate environment. So,
Yeah, we look forward to seeing more of him on our campus.
Catch up with him, sure.
So let's come to our collaboration. I want to talk a little bit about it. Do you wanna sort of raise the flag on the new museum that we are creating and tell us all about that?
You want to create pressure on Dubai in terms of creating the future of whatever. So I think one thought that I've been very passionate about here at PwC as well, and each time I've met Pratham and we've spoken about is in this foggy future, it's service to the nation, it's service to people, it's service to corporates, it's service to everybody by making that foggy future a little real. And the world of prototyping is extremely important in fact, large companies will have to build that muscle of prototyping because somebody will go back and say, great idea, but there'll be 10 people in the room who say, oh, that won't work. Manpreet, you spoke about future of agriculture and precision farming. Why do you need a laptop or device? A phone could have done that. There are 10 people who will go back and kill that argument. And therefore, as an entrepreneur, as an owner, I have to bring that prototype to the table for me to make this real. And that's something we've been working out as PwC ourselves. We set up a GenAI lab. We went out and said, what will the world of customer look like? What's the future of sales? What's the future of marketing? What's the future of customer service? How can that get disrupted? And we got a ton of traction. We've had, if nothing else, 150 companies come over and they've come back and said, wow, that's real. That's interesting. I wish I can do that. How can I get started? But the more we kind of step into that journey, we kind of realize even we are limited to our worldview of what we see at corporates. We've got to push the boundaries far more than what our corporates are challenging us for. Because maybe the CEO on the other side tells me saying, how can I get the best returns in 18 months, 24 months, 36 months? But when we collaborate with MU, you want to really push the boundaries of what the future of that segment will be 7, 8, 9 years out. And that is going to be a fun game. And that's a game where we will fail every day, but that's fine. But it'll be a fun game. A lot of IP will get created. And that's the future of the country. That's the future of technology. That's the future of new business models. And that's really what I'm looking forward to.
No, super excited. So we'll be converting our Tower C downstairs into a Gen AI lab, which will be collaboratively run by both of us. And we're super excited. It'll be open to all of the students, of course, and as well as clients of PwC who can come and really visualize the future.
Yeah.
We're very, very excited about that.
So on that, so this year, out of our GenAI lab, we've got 5 awards, including the prestigious AIBC award in Dubai for the best GenAI solution in the segment, including the NASSCOMS award for the best security solution for the tech sector. And as I said, our thinking is limited to the world that we see. And with you guys together, I think that 5 has to get to 50. And that's where we're kind of moving towards.
So on that note, I want to open up questions from the audience. I'm sure everyone's very curious about AI, about PwC, about this collaboration. So anyone wants to start?
What does this collaboration mean for us, the students? And to someone like me who asked Manpreet for an internship on LinkedIn, so could you go elaborate more on the collaboration part of the...
My intuitive answer to this is, like I said, it's not easy to think about the future. Masters Union has created an environment, an industry-led program, which generally allows you to collaborate, understand what's happening outside, so you are more and more comfortable about how the world of business runs. Now we're trying to get into that zone where we're trying to push the boundaries beyond what you hear and see here and now in terms of what that future will be, what that foggy future will be. Now, if all this is happening in your world along with PwC, your access to that, your access to some of the customer conversations, your access to thinking through some of those projects where prototypes have to get built, builds you that competitive advantage as an individual, as a brand, as an alumni network that gives you the right to win in the market, either as a startup venture or as an employee or as a collaborator. That's what we're trying to do. It's not easy to be able to think about the future when your day job doesn't let you push the boundaries 10 years forward.
I'll add to that. You'll have a space on campus where all the latest technologies, which are not even on retail yet.
For example?
For example, let's say OpenAI is one, right? But OpenAI has new 3 models coming up, which are not out in the market. Or, Facebook is to come up with those glasses that are not in the market yet. Or there are some new models that some niche company has created or startup is in the process of building right now, which is again not in the market yet. All of those technologies will be available in Tower C, where you can go and play with them. You'll also have companies coming in, which are clients of PwC, coming in and experiencing those technologies, right? And hopefully you can work along with them and co-create solutions. I'll also want you to please jump in here a little bit.
we would love to work with you guys to bring a fresh perspective of things without carrying that debt and baggage of solving problems, because we already are in the trenches. So with you guys, we would love to kind of collaborate on some of the every week we're solving some new problem or the other for our clients. And 90% of my job is to have my ears open in the market when I'm talking to customers to see what is it that they, it's unsolved, because that's where novelty comes in for us to, kick in. What's already been solved, obviously that will grow. But yeah, that's one area where we would love to collaborate with students over here to bring in that fresh perspective, not just from, like I said, from the tech side of things, but a problem solving ability. How do you apply technology, according to me, is the best skill that, we would like to get from this place. But absolutely, ideation and bringing it into, bringing the wheels into motion. I can know about AI technology. One part is obviously coding and getting the development done. But how do I use that to solve a real world problem? Is what, like Manpreet explained, right? The smell thing. How do you? That's an unsolved problem in the world right now. Some people are working towards it. There's a new startup, in fact, I was reading about, or Osmos or something, where they're trying to, they're using AI to do smell analysis. So these kind of things that we're looking to solve for, and we would have to kind of.
So one is thinking, the other is bringing that thinking to life through a prototype. And if you build the prototype, your ability to take it towards the patent becomes much better. I mean, fast forward, we've got to really measure ourselves in terms of how many patents are we creating. And that really is the bedrock of wealth creation, opportunity creation, transformation.
So there's also something called an AI wrapper. When you stitch together like almost like ready to market solutions, and you just stitch together to something someone can use. These obviously don't have a as sophisticated a moat as like proper like well invested AI startups. But is it a sustainable strategy going ahead as the core Gen AI is accelerating towards AGI that I keep cycling through monetizable wrapper after wrapper?
Great question. So, my personal belief is progress is more important than perfection. So, we can go back and challenge saying, no, this is just an AI wrapper. And a lot of people, I mean, there's a startup that will come to me and say, this is what we can do. And my teams will come back and say, boss, this will get disrupted in 6 months. The way I look at it is there value now until the next 6 months? Let's try it. So, if you are in that wrapper space, you were clearly ahead of the market because your ability to solve a problem through a wrapper ahead of the market who's somebody trying to solve it in a sustained long-term strategic way is quicker and faster. But you have to be constantly agile in terms of creating the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. If that's the only business you are in, you will be out of business in 10 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. So you have to keep moving. So you have to fundamentally build the skill of saying, I've created a wrapper to solve a certain problem. But I know 10 months, 12 months later, if the next model is out there, I will have to improve my wrapper to be able to get deeper into the issue. Otherwise, the other startup will kill you. So there is value to be extracted there, but the muscle that you will need is going to be slightly different than a deep tech muscle that kind of goes out and builds an IP.
Everyone thought that Google will disrupt many companies, right? Google will build this 1 month from now, 2 months from now, 1 year from now. Yet those companies did well. And their moat was the fact that they had a strong B2B sales team that was going there and actually selling and integrating those products in those organizations, which Google was not focused on doing. So your moat can always be sales. Like, know that.
So I think just the B2B sales bit that I was talking about, and when I think of PwC, right, I know we're a knowledge company, we're a consulting firm, but I kind of look at ourselves as almost, and this is just me speaking at a personal capacity, about 30,000 large enterprises in the country work with us on an annual basis. 30,000 companies are willing to pay the price for PwC to add value to them in their business. So we have that last mile access to their problems. And if we are an innovation hub that's got freewheeling thinking that's not just solving for the next 3 years, but it's actually disruptive, shaping how your next billions are going to get better return because my technology comes to table. 30,000 companies. I actually go back and say that's the Google for B2B.
Now here's an 18-year-old who has just joined the UG program, and he sees where the future gets created, and he sees companies and corporates collaborate with the institution. So really, props to all of you, and really glad this could happen. Now the question is that there's so much time, there's so much opportunities available to us, and as you said, there's agriculture, there's legal, there's every sector, every corporate that exists is going to benefit from and be replaced by new age companies who just happen to work better with AI and the next generation thinkings. Now it becomes ever more difficult to understand that you need to have a broad outlook, but you also need to niche down on one
specific sector that you want to cater to. Now, how does that work out? Because you have so many broad levels that you should be thinking about, and there's one sector that you have to look towards. I just don't get how you niche down towards that.
So it's the typical question of breadth and depth. We've grown up in the times where depth was important. You got your first job because you were a deep expert on something. But beyond a point, things, the mega trends and the disruptive technologies and the multitude of new things that are coming require you to have the breadth as well. Because if you are deep into one tunnel, you can't necessarily solve a problem. But you need to be deep as well. So it's a question of how do I have the right balance of having the breadth and the depth. And there is obviously no simple answer for that, other than the fact the future is all about cooperation. The future is all about collaboration. Future is all about getting the right complementary skill sets to come together. So again, I'll talk about my own story. I am a chartered accountant. I'm running a digital role. So one, of course, I've had to reskill myself through the years from an application lens. When I've picked up certifications, that I've kind of picked up that thinking. But I've been able to pair myself with a bunch of people and startups who bring in the depth on a particular agenda that I can otherwise envision. I can envision what the future of airport could be, but I may not necessarily be able to bring in that capability to really be able to solve for last mile. But if I can pair myself up with the right people, we can solve that problem. And that humbleness, that openness is going to be extremely important. Even at large companies, large corporates, you will begin to start seeing that lot more, where two people who were competing in the market will begin to start co-opting to work together because it creates strategic value. So don't pressurize yourself saying, oh my God, I'm living in a world where everything is foggy, world's changing really fast. I now need to be a PhD on a topic and I need to have the breadth. I mean, of course, you need to be curious and hungry, but you've got to, when you're setting up your venture or when you're getting into a job, you've got to be rallying around and building a team that's better and smarter than you at all ages of life. And that'll help you succeed. That's maybe a corporate-ish answer, but that's something I've lived over the last 20 years. But I know, Pratham, you want to add to that?
That's a breadth versus depth. I think at 18, I think there's going to be, 10 years from now, you'll do probably tens of projects, right? You'll do hundreds of assignments. You'll do so many different things. And in that journey, you'll find something that you truly resonate with, align with, and you have the right skill set for. It's very hard to deterministically find that. You have to probabilistically just try different things. Go in this way, no, come back. Go in this way, no, come back. Okay, let's go this way, further ahead. No, shit, this is not great. I mean, it has to be a process of elimination that will get you to where you truly want to go and end up at. It's not going to be, okay, today let me sit down, figure out what the TAM is for this industry. Okay, now let me figure out what are the gaps in this industry. Okay, now within this gap, what do I need to build? Now, if you go down that road, I think it's going to be harder versus just taking various shots and then seeing how the path charts itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
One thing's a certain, you will never, this is not the last degree you're going to take. You will keep being on the treadmill while solving for problems. You will have to keep picking up certifications. You'll have to keep reading things. And AI will make digesting all of that breadth a lot easier. You'll be able to summarize a lot of things and put this to your mind. You'll be able to put the BCI, the computer interfaces, to get your neurons to sort of act faster. So, I mean, all of that will happen. But you'll have to be hungry.
Would want to understand from you, like in terms of execution, right? What are some of the industries which have already started accepting blockchain as a sort of a painkiller that okay, I need to have this in the company, in the space, versus what are some of the industries which are sort of delayed?
I'll be very blunt and honest. There's a lot of talk about blockchain, but real application at scale, creating commercial advantages is still an untapped opportunity at scale. Pick up the gaming industry, right? The billions that are, it's a very, very fast growing industry. It's a nearly regulated industry. There's a lot of scanner around, activities that's happening. What if I pay the $100 to play poker and the algorithm is screwed up, right? Where I have a disadvantage. It's a problem that a regulator has to solve for, right? And if between one gaming company and the other gaming company, I'm the promoter who owns everything and controls everything, I can mess up, right? Versus if I bring in a blockchain architecture into that entire gaming ecosystem, I could create a competitive advantage or a trusted brand in a space that could be a huge competitive advantage. But is that happening? Every gaming company is talking about it. But is that happening? It's not happening at that pace. Media, social media, like I said, massive opportunity on the table. So I just think courtesy Gen AI a lot of these emerging technologies like metaverse, we've all spent the time in the dollars on metaverse and say, oh, metaverse is not delivering results. Or it was here. 10 years before that, I was in Germany. 2008, I was in Germany, and we had done the Second Life. So to me, that was my metaverse. Nothing happened after that. Then metaverse happened. Oh, it's a better version of Second Life. But today with Gen AI, the whole augmented reality, virtual reality is taken a whole new spin, and that's where net new dollars will get created. So again, I just think the application layers are huge, but there isn't necessarily economic output created, which to me is a massive opportunity, which to me is the opportunity that you got to solve for.
Just a follow up to that. When we normally, like when we are starting our ventures, also we are told that when you start to with a problem first and then try to find a solution. In terms of blockchain, like I think that there's already a tech built, and now we are trying to find a problem of where to solve. Do you think that's the case, or how is it?
No, I'll start off with the problem only. Let's go back to some of the biggest companies, right? Amazon, Google, Facebook, Meta. I mean, what is the one problem that they're all kind of being challenged for? There's so much of underlying data that one corporate has access to, that they have a significant advantage over the rest of the world in terms of being able to hyper personalize what they need to be, what they can monetize. I mean, Google has so much of data and information today that another small company will sort of struggle to compete with them when it comes to hyper personalization. That's the big problem you're trying to solve. Yet it addresses a certain need for us. So it's a necessary evil, right? I want to connect with people, so I need to be on social media. But unfortunately, each time I type something on social media, it's like, oh my God, my privacy. It's a cringy feeling that, is that getting leaked out? Now that's a problem that I need to solve. It's a real purpose, yet there's an underlying problem. Now bring in a blockchain architecture to that entire model. Will it create an opportunity for a billion people to swing out onto that platform? Because I'm still able to connect with people, yet feeling safe and secure about my data, and actually making a revenue stream out of it because my data is generating eyeballs, right? So that's what we have to do. Pick up YouTube, for example. YouTube created the monetization layer for every single person, and hence it's a massive platform. Amazing content, amazing advantage. But imagine you were to solve the problem of that platform being running on a blockchain. It kind of gets you to the whole next world altogether. And some of these large companies eventually will want to get there as well. It's just the thinking's right. You got to start off with a problem and address that problem and not be a prisoner to a technology. It's not that architecture that makes you solve a problem. It's a problem that gets you towards an architecture.